Welcome, everybody. It's episode 426 of the SevereMMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the William O'Donoghue of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a busy week, as it always is in the world of mixed martial arts. Before we get into all of that, though, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to unleash the beach beast within you. This summer, Manscaped is here to help you level up your beach game with their new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It's absolutely brilliant. It's everything that you're going to need. I decided it's time to put my best face forward, and maybe, do you know what? You should too, and do the exact same as me. So it's summer, let the beach balls bounce, turn heads all over the place. Go to manscaped.com and use the code SevereMMA for 20% off and free shipping. I actually had a friend of mine message me there yesterday. Here, Sean, do you still have the Manscaped code? I'm going to get this new beard hedger. And I was like, do you know what, JJ? We do. SevereMMA. 20 hair cutting lengths the Pro Kit has. It's absolutely unbelievable. One guard, no longer this all this rubbish of messy drawers and, add-ons all over the place. It's waterproof. You can use it in the shower. Titanium coated T-blade. It's tough but smooth on your face. Single stroke efficiency. Satisfaction. That's what you get from this. It doesn't end there, though. They've created 4 dermatologically tested formulations for your post-trim care as well. First of all, the beard shampoo and conditioner, which I use all the time. I ran out of it there the other day, and I used something else, and my hair just was terrible after. I'm not even joking. And I got my new Manscaped shampoo and conditioner, and it's different gravy. Your hair is different, and you need good stuff, and that is very, very good stuff. They have the beard oil as well. Relieves dryness on both the beard and the skin beneath it, with a little shimmer, little shine on it. And in the beard balm as well, it's a pomade which shapes, styles, moisturizes and tames for a sculpted look that everyone wants. So the Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 gifts: a beard brush, a comb and scissors to ensure your beard it's ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code SevereMMA. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. Also, when you're finished doing that, why don't you head on over to our friends over at calderalab.com and enjoy 20% off of their best products as well, using that promo code SevereMMA, because I mentioned the first impressions do matter. There's no two ways around it, and your face is the most likely first thing that someone will notice about you. You need good skin. Good skin will give a good impression, and it's time to get that good skin with our friends over at Caldera Lab. So go there, calderalab.com. Use the promo code SevereMMA for 20% off their best products. Caolan Lab creates high-performance men's skincare products, and the regimen is your twice-a-day formula to transform your skin. And the best part, it's really, really easy. It takes less than 30 seconds in the morning, 30 seconds at night, and a little time for huge benefits in compounding interest I can get behind all day long. Just like brushing your teeth, the impact may not be immediately apparent, but take a look at someone who hasn't brushed for a week. The difference is striking, isn't it? These products simply work for you. A week into using, you'll see noticeable differences. Now to the fun stuff. What Caldera products offer. Let me tell you. First off, the clean slate starts and ends your day. Face wash leaves your skin all types of refreshed, and you'll need the base layer right after to moisturize and hydrate your skin. Even better, absorbs fast, leaving you with a matte finish to start your day confidently. Then the good is your go-to at night. It's a face serum to round it all out. The clinically proven multifunctional serum that helps your skin look tighter and smoother, as well as helps reduce the visibility and fine lines. The visibility of wrinkles even and fine lines. Want to take things a step further? The Icon. This is absolutely brilliant. For me, someone who's always up late at night, you need that bit of eye serum. It helps address the 3 most common concerns around the eye: fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness. Caldera Lab made a top tier ingredients and is a legit showstopper, like Peter Queally. That is good for your today and the long run. It'll take 30 seconds in the morning and 30 seconds at night. Trust me, it's about time I got my skincare unlocked for the better. Doesn't get easier than this. So our call to action today, get 20% off using our code SevereMMA at calderalab.com. That's 20% off at calderalab.com using the code SevereMMA. Jump into skin and first impression royalty with Caldera Lab. Right, Graeme, let's get straight into the old fights there. How are you? Are you good? Did you enjoy, we had the UFC London Week, Cage Warriors London and all of that. Did you have a good time? Did you enjoy it? You did?
Yeah, no, it was good. It is a bit strange though. Like, I know it's usual for like Americans that we get used to the night, but it is a bit strange having it during the day and all evening. But it's a welcome change. But it is a bit kind of a different feeling or something. I don't know. I'm in a different mindset when it's this early.
It's very weird. I think this one wasn't too bad because there was no big sport on then. Maybe there was golf or something on, but there was no Man United match, no Liverpool match, although there's a friendly on at the moment, but there was no hurling today, it's going to be on tomorrow, no Gaelic football or anything like that. So it's a little bit different. Like, I hate when it like clashes with the Saturday evening match or something, but even still, you feel like we're only starting to watch the UFC. We're recording this at 22 minutes past 11 here on Saturday night, and it's like, well, now's our time to start our job kind of for the week, it is very odd, but it's weird because like I'm used to it with the Cage Warriors cards, and I've no problem with them on a Friday night.
I was just thinking that even with Bellator and stuff, I'm fine with it. It's just the UFC is just been for so many years. It's just been like set in my mind or in my routine that it's into the night. Yeah,
it is, and I don't know. I suppose it's just what we're used to now, and it'd be weird. I was actually thinking about it the other day. Do you know the way like the Saudis are buying out soccer now, and like I was listening to Second Captains the other day, and they were saying like the Saudi league could really be the second biggest league in the world within a decade, and even quicker than that possibly. Like, imagine if that happened with MMA. Like, someone decided, right, next thing we're going to go for is MMA, and they started buying out all the contracts of fighters and stuff, and our MMA was changed to be starting at 5 o'clock all the time, wherever it might be. I don't know whether I'd be able to cope with that, Graeme. I don't think I'd like it. I like MMA on a little bit later. I'm I don't know, am I a masochist or something that for staying up late all the time? But
I think we're just creatures of routine. Like, humans in general, you don't really notice that you're in such a routine until it's like changed. But we should be used to it with Cage Warriors, with Bellator, as I mentioned, other shows, KSW, but for some reason it just does seem a bit strange. But maybe because there was so many fights on, that it's also maybe started a bit earlier than maybe those other cards would start as well. Like 5 o'clock is a quite early start. Like, usually you kind of see doors at 5:30 or 6, and maybe first fight 6:30, 7 on Irish shows anyway. So as you said though, it would be a different kind of problem if there was, during a Premier League season, or even if there was a rugby match on or something like that. So they probably chose it for that reason, to get as many eyeballs as possible. And it being on Virgin Media for the live for the first time, I'm very interested to see what numbers they do. Obviously they had it before years ago when they were called 3E, but it's the first time in a long time. So I'm interested to see how it does all play out, and people who are missing sport and maybe wouldn't be that into the UFC, and maybe see an Irish girl in Shauna's fighting, and a few local people, and maybe a couple of people they've heard of as well. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how it's going to all work out, and what the kind of the engagement and interest in this event was.
Yeah, it was odd because at the event itself, I don't think there's been, say, a UK or Irish event for, let's say a big Bellator card or a big UFC card. A big Bellator card in Ireland anyway. So that has been maybe as quiet as that one tonight. Like, Andy was over there and he was saying it was about 85% full, and it looked that on TV as well. But even like they showed Paddy Pimblett on TV and on the big screen, and there was like no roar for him much, and maybe that's Paddy Moore, but there was loads of other people like Dele Alli came up and a few more, and I don't know, the crowd didn't seem that into it. But as you were saying, Graeme, as well, I'm looking at your 15 fights. We've been at events where there's a lot of fights, and it does drain you, like, especially, you know, a lot of the people in maybe Ireland or England went for the pints early, you know, maybe, you know, rather than showing up for the fights at 5 o'clock, maybe they met their mates at 12, went for a few beers before, watched a bit of the golf maybe, or watched whatever was on TV, and then headed in. And by the time it comes to like 9:30, 10 o'clock, you've been on the beer for 8-9 hours. Like it's not easy to keep that going. So yeah, I think as well, just on like the broadcast and stuff, I kind of was looking to see how could I watch this without seeing the English TNT broadcast thing on it, and by the time I got around to actually going back and putting it on Virgin or whatever, it was already over and I didn't see any of it. So that was absolutely fantastic. But like this TNT has changed again. Like nobody wants an English broadcast team. Like I speak for all MMA fans. I can genuinely say that when we just want the American broadcast, just give us that and give us absolutely nothing else. We're absolutely fine with that, no problem. If you want to do a pre-show or a post-show that's not connected with it, by all means bring in whatever boxing journalists you want to do that, no problem, work away. And even like, I know you were sending the clip as well, they had a lad, they kind of rolled him out on Virgin Media as well, a lad who knew nothing about MMA. I hate those sort of things. Like MMA fans don't like those sort of things when there's like, you know, spoofers being brought out, and I'm not necessarily saying the lads on TNT, but like Caroline Pierce has been around now for a good while and stuff like that, but this lad on Virgin Media was, I don't know, it still feels with MMA. It's all a bit, you know, we'll throw it in there and look, we'll have this lad read Wikipedia for 30 seconds and it's all well and good, Graeme. We're still that, aren't we? We're still the broken down little child.
Yeah, I didn't actually see the BT coverage because I watched it on Virgin Media, but they kept, you know, taking ad breaks during the middle of rounds, or not during the middle of the end of rounds, you know, the minute round, and they'd come back like 10, 15 seconds late, and you'd miss like the first 10, 15 seconds of the round. It's just like, come on, lads, this isn't that difficult. Like 1 minute, come on. Like, I know they haven't, it's the first time in a long time, or the first time under the Virgin name and banner or whatever showing it, but that was just, you know, annoying. Like, luckily there was no like big, well, maybe there was, but there was no like, you know, knockouts anyway or finishes in them at the start of rounds. But it's just annoying. You want to see the full fights.
Yeah, you do, and that's been a problem for ages. It's tough to do MMA though. I really think, like, I was thinking tonight, listening to John Gooden, who's so brilliant, and you know, listening to guys who do the play-by-play, you can't hide reality, right? So you listen to John Gooden and you know he is a diehard MMA fan. You listen to Brad Wharton and you know he lives and breathes it. You listen to John Anik and you know he's been living and breathing it for 15 years or something like that. You just know it, like. And when you're an MMA fan, you know that. Everyone listening to this podcast right now knows exactly what I mean. Like, everyone has had that chat with someone and they say, oh, what are you doing? Or what are you doing tonight? You go, I'm watching the fights. And then they chat with you about the fights and you know that they haven't the clue. Like, everyone listening to this podcast has either had that chat or they will have that chat, right? And that's what these broadcasts are missing. They need someone. Do you know what they need? They need a Sean Denny to just stand behind them and go, here, no, actually, lads, we wouldn't say that. We'd say this. Or we'd do this. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't cut off Molly McCann's walkout. We wouldn't cut off the first 10 seconds of a round. You know, or they need you, Graeme, or they need me, or they need whatever MMA fan, anyone listening to this podcast. And they always kind of miss that. And yeah, I don't know. It was great to have it on Virgin Media. I know even my father was watching it and he was like, you know, he turned it on Virgin Media and he would usually, like, there's fights on, he'd be flicking through and he'd see, you know, BT Sport or whatever it would be, and he just put it on Virgin Media because he's been seeing it all week after fucking Judge Judy and the 5:30 news and stuff like that, you know. So it was good in that. And, you know, he mentioned, there's an Irish girl fighting, and this he said it to me before I even knew it was going to be on Virgin Media. So that is really good. I know we're giving given out about it a bit, but the Virgin Media part, very good. The TNT part, with now obviously change over from BT to TNT is a bit weird, but we'll get over that too. But I think it was the event in all. I got a question about it on the Q&A last week, and we briefly mentioned, I think, here as well, but like I put a tweet up, and everyone replying was saying about the price gouging, the insane price of tickets is a massive reason why people weren't there. And I think that's it. I wonder as well, like, is part of it why they weren't as excited as they were, is the price of tickets. Like, I've paid this amount of money, and I saw a lot of people, like, and I find it actually hard to decipher what's a good and bad card these days, but I saw loads of people saying, here's finally a bad card that turned out to be a really bad card type of thing. I saw Capoza saying it, and Mookie Alexander, and a few more as well. And I wonder were the people there who paid their fucking 250 quid or whatever it was, thinking, I'm after paying 250 quid here, I could have gone to see fucking 3 Arsenal games, or I could have gone to see a trip up to see Liverpool, or I could have fucking flown out to Portugal for 2 weeks for the price of this. Yet I'm here and I'm watching fucking Johnny Parsons versus Danny Roberts. You know, it's a tough one. It is a tough one, you know. And Dana White has always said that I'm, you know, or Vince McMahon has said it, or whoever. Like the competition isn't the other sports. The competition is what's on the cinema tonight, or you know, who's going on holidays.
Yeah. Do you think it was a mistake by the UFC to not have like an English lad like in the first kind of, you know, 5 or 6 fights? You know, Chris Duncan was obviously in there, but he's a Scottish lad. You know, the first actual English lad fighting was the 6th fight
at
Mick Park, and you know what I mean. Like, yeah, I could see if even if the UFC put on a show in Dublin and they put a bunch of, you know, non-Irish in the first 5 or 6 fights, I could see people coming in late, you know, staying in the pub for an extra pint or two. So yeah, it's I think that was a mistake. You know, when you have so many fights, you know, obviously you don't have that many English lads to fill the card out, but you know, just throw one maybe in the second fight or the third fight and get people in there a little bit earlier, get the atmosphere going. I think that probably would have helped. Yeah. But you know, Andy Stevenson was there for SevereMMA. Maybe hear his thoughts on how the atmosphere was. But you know, even when during the walk-ins, you could see how many empty seats there were everywhere, and yeah, it's just, it kind of takes away from that big event feel as well when you see so many empty seats, and it's not just like, you know, the very first fight of the night. Yeah, and I think as well, the fact that like I'm not taking away anything from these lads, the likes of Jai Herbert, Paul Craig, Nathaniel Wood, those were 3 of the top 5 guys on the card in terms of the British guys. And like, none of them are really big stars per se. Well, like let's say in Ireland, if Brian Moore was walking out, no, he might be a big star in the worldwide stage, but when he walks out to the Wild Rover or whatever, there's a big, you know, big atmosphere. When Peter Queally walks out, there's big. When Sinead Kavanagh walks out, if it was Kiefer Crosby, and you might like
have
Paddy Houlihan walked out in UFC Dublin the first fight of the night. You know, his debut, the place was filled out. You know, everybody was invested. Everybody was going crazy like it was the main event. You know, that's what you need to create. Get that 100%. Kind of buzz going. And you get that by either having, say, there was a bit of it from Ollie. Obviously, if Paddy was there, he was injured, they couldn't have it. But you could get it for someone who's like a top-ranked fighter, like say an Arnold Allen. But also, like, let's say they had a Max Holloway on the card or something like that. People, like Yoel Romero when he came and fought in Ireland, people are all loving it, you know. It was a big buzz. When they didn't have anything like that. And like, even the main event, per se, like Aspen, a very good fighter, and they like him and everything, but like, I don't know, it just felt like the whole card, they didn't have any of that. And you know, we talked about it last week, and I went through and I was like, it's not a great card. And then I went through the fighters, like some good fighters and some good fights, and it turned out to be that way. But like, it was just a fine card. Like it was fine, it was grand, like, you know. And you're in London. I just don't think that's enough. But anyway, let's get into it. Enough of our complaining now. We actually haven't done that and actually just complained about a card for like 20 minutes. Just before we move on, has the BT punditry made you feel a new appreciation for Daniel Cormier and the boys?
I actually didn't hear any of it. The second I saw it coming on, I was like, oh, fuck that. I'm just going to find some other way of watching this. I'm going to go see if it's on Fight Pass or, you know, wherever. And, or go and look on Virgin Media. And I went out and I got a kind of Coke or something. I came back. And by the time...
didn't even give the lads a chance.
No, I gave them a chance before.
Slating them, and he didn't even give them a chance.
I didn't even mention their
awful
names.
Stuff.
I didn't say nothing about them. I'm sure they're lovely lads, whoever they are. But like, yeah, no one wants to see that. Like, no one does want to see it. Anyway. Tommy Aspinall. He did good. He came in. 73 seconds.
More
70,
than
oh
good,
God,
no.
73.
That was very good.
I just said
Going back
73. Limerick are playing the All-Ireland tomorrow. Oh, Jesus. That's is that a sign? Anyway, yeah.
Coming back off like a serious injury, a lot of pressure on, obviously, he's a lot more talented than Tybura, but you can beat people and you can beat the shit out of people. And he beat the shit out of Tybura, and he did it in a classy, smooth, flowy way. Didn't have any jitters, didn't show any ring rust. Pretty, very, very dominant performance, and pretty ideal. Get in there, get the finish, knee holds up, no problems like that. Pretty perfect night for Tom Aspinall. Yeah, it was one of those fights where you're watching Aspinall and you're thinking, well, this could be a real potential banana skin. And you're like, Tybura is not a great fighter, but he's not a bad fighter. And if you're not at 100%, he could cause you problems. And I saw a few different people talking about, maybe Tybura is a good bet here. And even I was looking on the betting show, I was kind of like, maybe I'll avoid this and see what way Aspinall look. But as you said, Graeme, he just came in and took the fight, took the bull by the horns and just decimated him, really walked forward, didn't care about his shots, threw the right hand straight down the middle. It's one of those ones, right, where it was the same a little bit with John Jones, who he talked about afterwards, when he came back and he did a similar thing to Gagne, obviously in a different way, but similarly kind of destroyed him. And it's like, that was great, but how much did we actually learn from this? And as I was analysing this on the way into it, I was actually I picked the over around and a half in this, which was completely wrong. And my analysis kind of coming into it was we actually haven't seen that much of Aspinall at the very top level. Like Jones, we haven't seen too much of him at heavyweight at the top level. Now we've seen a lot of him at light heavyweight, but it's when you haven't seen that much, and a similar thing happened to McGregor, was always the talk with him, because we hadn't seen that much of him. He was knocking kind of everyone out and around and everything like that, and then he'd 15 minutes. When guys are winning so easily, like Aspinall has.
That's what I was about to say. They don't get enough credit, do they?
It gives you the confidence that they can step up, and hang with them. But as you said, you don't actually know that until it happens. You can assume a lot, but in MMA, it all happens. Nothing happens on paper. It all happens in the cage, and stepping up against these guys, especially at heavyweight, they do have power. You can be, dominating the fight. You can be doing everything smoothly. You can be picking a guy off and get hit with one big shot, and that can change everything. So, Francis Ngannou isn't around anymore. He was the biggest hitter, but there's still a lot of big hitters around, and obviously Aspinall's a massive prospect. Even if you can still call him a prospect, he's you probably still can because we haven't, as you said, we haven't seen him against the very top guys, but we're looking at a heavyweight division that's probably even obviously Francis being there will be a big help, but even without Francis there, it's looking the healthiest it's looked in a while, because of people like Aspinall coming up and fresh matchups, and John Jones being in there and making it more exciting and stuff. It's an exciting time for the heavyweight division, and obviously Tom Aspinall, this is a huge win, but after such an injury, I'd still take the slow road. I wouldn't be trying to rush in there against any of the top guys. I'd be just kind of maybe one more at least, if not two more, kind of showcasey ones, stepping up a little bit, but not going into the top 3, 4, 5 yet. Because there is no rush, at heavyweight, the kind of longevity is longer than in the other divisions, especially in the lighter divisions. And Tom Aspinall can sell for the UFC in European shows and in main eventing in England and the UK and stuff like that. So I'd say they probably will take the slow road with him, because John Jones is there. Maybe if John Jones, there's talk about retirement going on here, maybe that will change things. I don't really believe, we talk about MMA retirements all the time. But
afterwards, Aspinall called out. He said Spivak and Gagne are fighting afterwards, and he's going to be in Paris for that and fight the winner.
I don't know. I don't think so. I'd love to see it, but I for Aspinall and for kind of cultivating him, I'd say you wait another one first. That's what I do ideally. I know I'm always kind of take the slow road, but coming off such a, it's not an ACL injury, but it's a pretty serious knee injury, and I think I think another fight. Like,
yeah, if it was Spivak,
he went in there and win in a minute 13. If he takes another fight, he probably go and win there. It'd just be another camp behind him, more trust in that leg, that knee, more time to develop. He's still early in his career. He's got 15 fights, but he's still he's still not as experienced maybe as some of the other guys at the very top. So yeah, I wouldn't be rushing in, but obviously if he's calling for it, he thinks he's ready, and will the UFC do it? I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah. Ideally, as I said, I wouldn't be rushing into anything like that.
I find it weird to analyse Aspinall because I feel like we've been saying they need to take it slowly for about 5 fights now, like, which is, at some stage we're like,
if he had have gone in and beaten Curtis Blades and it hadn't kind of gone with the knee injury, it would be a different story. But because of the knee injury and because of how good a prospect he is, I don't think you take the risk even of like putting him in there now. I think you just give him another fight.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree at all. Like, I think I've always gone back and forth on Aspinall. I obviously think he's a very good fighter, but I still think if you look at the guys at the top of that division, now it's kind of slightly changed, I suppose, over the last year or so. Like, you look at, it was at the time Gagne and Francis. And, like, is his striking going to be able to live with him? Let's say if Francis came back. Like, that's going to be an issue. Is his wrestling good enough to beat both of them? Maybe he's very good on the ground. Like, he's good jiu-jitsu, and I need a jiu-jitsu black belt, I think, and all. But, like, then you think about John Jones. Now, you could say that about anyone with John Jones. But, like, if you're fighting John Jones, as you said there, you need to be ready. You need to be more than ready. And as a guy who hasn't put in rounds after rounds after rounds, who, like, he's never gone, I'm just looking here, he's never gone to a third round, I'm pretty sure. No, he hasn't. He's never gone to a second round in the UFC. Once he went to a second round in the UFC against Andrei Arlovsky, and that ended, only a minute into the second round. Like, I don't know, it feels like you need a 3-round fight or a 5-round fight in there to prepare you to be your best against John Jones. And it's grand, like, maybe you'll find out you're well able for 5 rounds against John Jones when you get there, but what if you don't? It feels like an awful rush. And, like, the problem there as well is, like, who is going to give you that? So maybe, let's say he did fight Gagne next, and they did go 4 or 5 rounds. Maybe would that be the test, Graeme? Like, I think, like, there was a fight last night, one of the Irish fighters, Takamandu, fought, and it's obviously at a completely different level, but he lost a couple of fights and he ended up winning this one, but still he was in there against a guy who really shouldn't have been in there against. He was just levels and levels above him, and it's like, the win will do him good, but, like, will just kind of destroying a guy do him any good in the long run? And I'm like, sometimes, and I think there's a place for that sometimes in MMA, right? But you also need the experience of beating guys along the way. We talked about it with Reese last week. If he goes in there and beats the guy on his way in now, and then the next guy, you'll improve after every one of them fights and come on after every one of them fights. And as you said, Graeme, look, he's putting in camps and he's improving through each one of them camps, I'm sure. But there's nothing like being actually in there and doing it against the guy at a certain level. Like, he could beat the likes of Tibura for the next 3 fights, but would it bring him on? Would it bring him on as much as going 3.5, 4 rounds against Gagne? Or let's say if he had fought Blades and Blades took him down in the first 2 rounds and maybe he knocked him out in the third and showed his cardio or something like that, it would have brought him on a little bit more. Like, I think do you think it's probably the time to do that next? Like, wouldn't, and like the Gagne one,
Blades again?
Do that. Maybe Blades again or Gagne. You don't want it.
But I think Blades is set to fight Jailton Almeida, but that's not till November. So you could, I don't think anybody's going to be too sad if you pull that apart. Yeah, that's what I mean. Or sorry, against. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, Almeida. Yeah, you could do that. Like, if you're going to break up that Almeida Blades fight, though, you probably want to make the rematch with Blades, and Blades can offer kind of more questions in terms of, he offers a bit of takedown threat as well as being heavy-handed. But, like, I do see, Tom Aspinall going through Curtis Blades pretty handily. But as I said earlier, like, I'd like to see him put in that camp. Like, if you're gonna be fighting somebody like John Jones, as you said, you got to be at the sharpest you can be. And John Jones is going to be like oblique kicking that leg. Like, John Jones is going to know you came back off of the injury. He's going to be oblique kicking that knee. He's going to be making it hell for you. Like, and he's the most difficult matchup in the division. So it just for me strategically, it would just make sense to give it a little bit of time before that, and not to be in any rush. But the thing with John Jones is maybe if you wait too long, you don't get to fight him. Maybe he'll be gone. Maybe, with John Jones, you don't know what's going on. Like, anything could happen. So there's also that, where if you don't get there now, you don't know how the landscape's going to change. So yeah, from Tom Aspinall's point of view, I'm sure, like from his call out, that he's looking at positioning himself for a title. So after that performance, and we'll see what Dana White says in the post-fight media scrum or whatever. But yeah, I'd say if I had to bet, they probably will put him in a big time fight that will line him up for contendership. Yeah,
and that Paris card isn't too far away, so maybe we could see him there, and we could see him fighting the winner of that, and
or we could see him over in the States next. Maybe, I think
maybe. But yeah, let's say if he fights the winner of the Paris card, he could fight them in the States, maybe MSG towards the end of the year or something like that. I think that might be a way of doing it. But yeah, exciting times. And like, as I said there earlier, making the point, sometimes lads don't get enough credit for devastating wins like that, and I definitely think he deserves it. Like, I've been not harsh on Aspinall, but maybe I haven't given him the credit he deserves. He's a very, very good fighter, and it's easy to say, Jesus, he'll never get to that level because the lads at the top are very good. But sometimes lads are just as good, and they sneak up and then become a little bit better and a little bit better, a little bit better, while other lads are kind of tapering off maybe towards the end of their career, or have hit a wall or something like that, and quickly one lad is at 10 and the other lad's at 7, and then the other lad's at 10 and the other lad's at 9 maybe, and that's that.
Yeah, well, to me, Aspinall hasn't shown any signs that he doesn't have the ability, but it's just that the questions just haven't been answered yet, because he's disposed of his opponent so quickly and so easily, barred obviously in the UFC run, obviously barred a knee injury that made him officially lose to Curtis Blades. But yeah, I think like, if the British people, the English people should be very excited about Tom Aspinall, and he maybe, like, if the TV deal's coming up, Sky could be looking at, or we have a heavyweight contender here, that could play a factor in Sky Sports, maybe changing their stance on not wanting MMA, and the fact that, like, live sport is kind of the only programming that does big numbers for these big corporations like B Sky B and stuff like that will play into it, and the WWE being owned by the same people and all that stuff. So it could be with the UFC's interest to make Tom Aspinall as big a star as they can and put a little push behind him. We haven't really seen the UFC do that a lot in recent years. It's kind of like you kind of have to make your own way, but it probably would be in their best interest to do that. So yeah, with the TV deal in Ireland, it's great. We'll see how long it lasts, see how successful it is and things like that. But TNT Sports and BT Sport have been great. It's been great, like, for the sport, having them on that, but it just pales in comparison to the exposure and the excitement that Sky Sports News particularly can create. So it
would be different. It would be totally different, wouldn't it? Like, and I wonder,
like, seriously, like, people, like, I make this joke before, but like, people actually were very excited and thought it was an important boxing match when a retired cricketer who had to retire due to a knee injury, Freddie Flintoff, was exhibition boxing some guy, I can't even remember, and people were like messaging, being like, oh, when is this Freddie Flintoff match on or fight on? Like, because Sky Sports News had been hyping it up, so like, they really do have a huge reach, and people will just have it on in the background, and it'll just kind of be like a fixture in sports fans' lives. And with BT Sports, that just doesn't exist. Or TNT Sports.
No, and it never will either, because it's basically a subscription behind a subscription type of thing. So it's not, it can't be that. Look, they've done great, but they can't. Another point as well, just quickly, and this maybe something we'll talk about in the Q&A, maybe more if someone wants to ask, but like, WWE and UFC are the same company now. And just at the moment with WWE, and this is part of all of this, so I'm not going and talking about wrestling here or anything, but at the moment there's like a bit of a war going on between them and AEW, the other wrestling company. And AEW, I think in the next couple of weeks, are running Wembley Stadium, and they've sold, like, I don't know, 60,000 seats or something, which is absolutely massive for them. It's not filling out, but they're not far from filling it out, I don't think. But WWE ran a show a couple of weeks ago in the O2 Arena or whatever, and then they like brought out John Cena or whatever, and they were like, oh, we'd love to bring WrestleMania to the UK. And I think they want to do that because AEW are doing it. You know, they don't want him to win anyway. That's what Vince McMahon has done for years. Then we know Dana White has done it as well. So I wonder, will that play a part into it as well? As you said, Graeme, like TV deals coming up are a big part of it. If they have a big, massive Wembley WrestleMania coming up, you know, I'm sure Sky Sports will want to be part of that. Maybe people think, it's only fake wrestling, but the numbers it drives and all, and you know, if they're doing more shows in the UK to kind of stop AEW from doing it, that'll be more, you know, primetime shows in the UK for Sky to put on. As you said, live programming is very hard to get on, and if they have that relationship with the same company, and you could say the UFC do a lot. You know, and we'll probably be doing more, probably could do more prime time, European time shows. It could be something that would entice Sky into signing up for the UFC as well as the WWE. So I think it's that's all something now that'll probably take a couple of years to work out. But I think it's an interesting space to just watch, have a think about, and if you see anything happen, kind of realise there's a lot of layers to this. You know, there's a lot of different parts of it. And there's a lot of different, you know, wars to be won. And even you see MVP was on the screen tonight, showed by the UFC. You know, so I wonder if he'll be getting signed up, but I don't know if they'll pay the money for that. But anyway, maybe we'll talk more about MVP in a few minutes. Let's talk about Shauna Bannon, Graeme. Obviously, she went into her fight. She was the second fight on the card against Bruna Brazil, and it was a tough fight for Shauna. She came out in the first round, and it was, to me, it just seemed all a little bit rushed. No setups. Brazil was kind of landing her right hand at will, landed a few head kicks, and Bannon's face was reddening up a bit. You know, kind of the same in the second early, and then there was kind of a long clinch, and I think that kind of helped Shauna kind of come back into it a little bit more. She was kind of winning in the clinch, but Brazil probably had done enough at the start of that round. She got a late takedown as well, which didn't make much difference, but in the third, Shauna had settled, and you could see she was setting up things better and landing her jab and landing a few good shots. And now, instead of her being the one that's face was getting reddened up and her being the one that was taking the shots, it was Brazil. And Brazil did get a late takedown, but Shauna definitely won that third round. The judges were actually split on rounds 2 and 3. So, you know, technically Shauna could have gotten the win because she, you know, if a couple of judges had changed around their mind even on round 3, but she didn't, and I think fairly so. I had Brazil. I think Brazil won 29-28. But to me, Graeme, and I don't know how you feel, I feel, look, the first thing we said a couple of weeks ago when Shauna was signed was like, is it too quick? Is it too soon? For only 5 fights into her career. And I think a little bit of that played out, right? And that's not to make an excuse or anything like that, because it wasn't an excuse, because we said it beforehand. But myself and Harry do a podcast about this all the time over on Speaker's Corner on our Patreon. If you're not signed up, please do patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And we talk about experience in MMA. We've probably done 3 podcasts on it and how much it matters, and how much, like, even Brazil had 1 fight in the UFC and 1 Contender Series fight. That sort of experience matters. Like, Shauna's never fought in front of more than a couple of hundred people. She's never had that big 3 arena fight. She's never had even the big Invicta title fight. She wasn't able to get there yet. And because of her talent, her clear talent and her star power and all of that, they signed her, and they signed her too early. Like, if this was 3 or 4 fights down the line, and she had fought maybe a big 3 arena fight, or, you know, she was an Invicta champion and she got over that hurdle and she had 2 or 3 more camps, maybe she would have turned from a 29-28 against her to a 29-28 for her. And, you know, I saw a few people like online, you all obviously, sure, she's useless, you know, like, it doesn't take much to turn that fight around, if we're being honest. She's very, very young in her career. It wasn't a great performance in the first 2 rounds especially, but this is sort of fight that you go back and you look at, and maybe the preparation as well. I know she was out in Poland a couple of weeks beforehand, and she was going over to Liverpool the week before, and it's all very rushed, and it has to be, you know, you've a young lad at home as well. How can it not be rushed? But maybe that's something she looks at as well in the future, that, you know, the preparation, especially close to the fight, has to be more insular. Maybe, you know, you stay with Paddy for the last month and you do nothing but that, or whatever it might be. But, you know, it was tough, a learning experience, Graeme. And what did you think of it overall?
Yeah, I'm not sure about all the stuff in the camp and all that stuff. I'm not sure what went on there, but, you know, we talked about it before, like the fact that, like, the UFC jitters are talked about. Some people it doesn't affect, some say it doesn't exist, but we've seen it so many times. you know, and we even saw it during the fight, like the first round or round and a half, and the second half of the second round and the last round, two different Shaunas. You know, she settled in much better, but she was kind of, you know, fighting uphill by that stage. She knew she was gonna, you know, needed a finish in the third round, and it's hard to get when somebody also kind of knows or thinks in the back of their head that they're 2 rounds up and don't really need to take too many chances as well. But, you know, 5 fights into a career, as you said, it's a big ask to come into the UFC and make a, you know, relatively short notice debut against, you know, a more experienced opponent. But the experience will stand to her to go back and work on all that stuff, you know. As we say, like as we always say, the secret ingredient to success can be defeat. And it seemed like she kind of was figuring out what she needed to do as the fight went on, but it was kind of too late. But, you know, there'll be plenty of time now to go back and study that with Paddy and the training partners in the gym and the other coaches, and improve, because that's what this stage of your career is. The first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fights are, you know, we see fighters come on leaps and bounds. If you go back and watch any kind of 10-0 fighter when they were 5-0, they're nowhere near the same fighter that they are when they're 10-0 or when they're 10 fights deep. Just experience, as you said, of the big occasions, the big crowds, the big pressure moments, the tough opponents, all that stuff, the experience of, like, you know, even the media experience, the fanfare, all that stuff is completely different once you step into the UFC. And you know, it's just a kind of a learning experience earlier in her career. Obviously, we don't really see that too often in the UFC. You know, you see a lot of guys have to, you know, spend a lot more years getting in there, but it just shows how exciting Shauna has been and how impressive some of her wins have been, that the UFC, you know, didn't want any other promotion to snatch her up and got her in there quickly. But I think the UFC will know that, you know, they need to kind of match her up appropriately. And as a 5-0, 6 or 5-1 fighter now, is it? Yeah, 5-1 fighter now. So yeah, I think you know, people can kind of, I saw online people kind of making fun, but as I said, wait until she has as many fights as her opponent did, and then we can kind of judge where she's at. More than now. Obviously, people are going to judge her as a UFC fighter because she signed to the UFC, and that's fair enough. And the UFC signed her, but you gotta like take it in context of how early she is in her pro career.
Yeah, I think, and just to point to, like, maybe so what could have been done differently in the fight tonight. I think, like, coming into it, I was thinking both of them are kind of the point fighting fighters, which we saw for almost the whole fight. And I was like, who's going to get the better of it? Like, Brazil got the better of it for the first round and maybe 2 minutes. And then it was even for a while. And then Shauna got the better of it for maybe 3.5, 4 minutes of the third round. So, you know, overall, Brazil had the better of it for an extra few minutes. But I just think, and look, Brazil was able to get a few takedowns and things, but my analysis kind of coming into this, if you look at Shauna's last few fights, you'll see a lot of her good work on the ground and her ability to, like, get takedowns and trip people and things. And I just feel like if you had, and we talk about it often, Graeme, you throw in a takedown or even a takedown attempt in the first round, you show you're a well-rounded mixed martial artist, which he has shown before. I think that maybe changes the fight a little bit. And that's the sort of thing with experience you get as well. You're thinking like, well, shit, I'm after eating a few shots here, 2.5 minutes in. Do you know what? And there was another fight, the Nathaniel Wood fight, it kind of happened. I'm after eating a few fights here. Do you know what? I'll get a takedown. The fight comes back to the feet after 90 seconds, and then everyone's reset. And then you can start your striking again. You've reset, and then you can maybe start winning it and get a knockdown or start winning the striking. You know, those sort of things change it. And I think if she could have gotten that takedown or even a bit of a clinch in the first round, it could have changed that fight from, you know, 7 minutes of Brazil doing well with the striking to maybe 3 minutes of her doing well with the striking, making the first round a little bit closer, and maybe the start of the second round she wasn't as willing to come out and you know, and throw as she was after getting her confidence up in the first round. So, you know, things like that are things you can learn. And I think anyone watching that fight and thinking, you know, whatever you want to think about Sean, just look at the third round and look how she refused to give up. She refused to not keep going. I maybe, was it the right tactic maybe to do that? Maybe not, right? But still, in the third round, she started winning the fight and she showed her quality in that. And if that quality ups, that decision making gets better, the nerves go, as you said, Graeme, and that was a point I wanted to make as well. The octagon jitters are a real thing. If they go, then Shauna, for the next fight, if she's matched appropriately, can win and win after that and win, and then keep moving up and up and up, and then we'll see where she goes after that. But
yeah,
I wouldn't.
It wasn't her best performance, you know.
No.
Well, we've watched her for as long as she's been fighting, and you know, it wasn't the real Shauna out there. And for whatever reason, like I'm like you, I'm leaning towards kind of UFC jitters and things like that, and the big occasion, and you know, obviously she's fought a lot of kickboxing matches and all that stuff, but this is just, you know, it's a different kettle of fish in the UFC, and you're on Irish terrestrial TV and all that stuff, and you know it's a big moment. Everybody knows it's a huge moment, and you know, as much as inexperienced as, or as much as we talked about her inexperience and things like that, I think, you know, there's a much better Shauna already there, but it just kind of, it took her too long to get going. But as you said, it was good. It was a good sign for her to come out and win the third round and turn around the second round as well. Like, you know, well, on one card, I actually thought she lost the second round as well. But, you know, to make it competitive despite it starting off badly, and, you know, show the grit and determination. And like, I've no doubt in my mind that she'll come back better and that she'll be winning in the UFC soon.
100%. Other fights around then, Jafel Filo beat Daniel Perez. Chris Duncan, as Chris Duncan always does, put on a real fun fight against Yanel Ashmouz. That was a good fight. Not so fun, Caolan Loughran.
I thought it was meant to be over about 6 or 7 times.
That's kind of Ashmouz kind of hurt his left arm, didn't he? I thought he hurt his right leg. Was it his wrist as well, or
yeah. I don't know. He made it very obvious that he was something wrong with him. I don't know, like, are you better off just not bringing any attention to it, or discreetly mentioning it to your corner instead of immediately being like, grabbing at your arm the second the round ends? It kind of gives your opponent the old okay.
Yeah. Muradov beat Barberena then. He beat him badly. He looks a very good prospect coming through there. Mick Park and Jamal Pogues for I suppose an entry-level heavyweight fight. This was fucking very good. Like, it wasn't a great fight, but it was a great tactical battle, I suppose, which we never see at heavyweight at this level. So that was good. I mean, it was something different, so no problem. A great fight though, Yoel Alvarez, against Mark Chikasi. This one, this will surely be changed to no contest, Graeme. Would you think? Like, it was a very good fight.
I don't think it will be, but I think it definitely 100% should be. Like, it should have, when they started, the commentary said, they're looking at the what was it, the video assistant ref, or what's he called?
We'll just call him that, VAR. Let's go
replay ref, I think it's called. The replay ref was looking at it apparently, and then somehow decided that the headbutt that clearly started the sequence that finished the fight, like a pretty nasty, you know, side of the head, forehead to the side of the head headbutt that, you know, you could see the visible reaction, and the contact was, everything was there. Like, you know, it's blatantly obvious, like clear and obvious, as VAR would say in soccer. So yeah, if it wasn't turned over then I think it makes it, you know, we've seen these before. People can be poked in the eyes and nearly have their eyeballs pulled out of their head and get TKO'd a second later, and it's all grand. But like,
I don't think anyone meant it. Like, I don't think Alvarez meant it or anything like that. It was like,
no, absolutely not. No, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this is a bona fide no contest, right? Something happened which should have led to the fight being stopped so we could check the fighter. The referee unfortunately missed it. And you know what? I would 100% back the referee in forcing that fight to continue if he didn't see it. Because we always complain about, Graeme, and you say it all the time, it's like, how can you give a decision that you didn't see, right?
But I think if a guy I actually agree with you in 99% of situations, but in this situation, because Jacasey reacted, being like, something illegal's happened here, he actually reacted, like the ref couldn't have missed it.
Yeah, but
he should stop it. And then if Jacasey is been hit with a punch or a legal strike, then say, okay, you're TKO.
I don't agree with that. Because
if you call like a fake headbutt or whatever to recover from a strike, like, you have to be, you know, that should be the end of the fight.
Okay, well, fair enough. Yeah, but that's not what would happen. It's no, it wasn't a legal strike, and the fight would start, and then he'd have the 30 seconds. Like, Jacasey didn't do that now, and let's just put that out there. But let's say someone did. Like, I would stand by the ref 100% in what he did there, right? And it's not about, and he got the call wrong, But if he didn't see it, you can't fucking call it. Right? You can't call it.
Is he not allowed to call to the replay ref to ask? He is,
yeah. He is.
Yeah,
but
so
the
he
fight,
didn't do everything right.
That's fair enough. Well, that's fair enough, yeah. But the fight finished. Like, he was concentrating on the fight being finished at that stage. So, but
can he not go back 10 seconds later and be like, oh, the start of that kind of sequence was...
and that's what should have happened.
Can I not take a look at that, please?
Exactly. He should have. Yeah, but everyone should have, like the replay ref or whatever they're called. Every single person should have got there and looked at that and said, this is it's an easy after the fight call. It's a very hard in the fight call, but after the fight, oh no, there was a head clash there. The referee unfortunately missed it. Then the fight was finished quickly after that. This is a clear no contest. Very harsh on Joel Alvarez. He didn't really do anything wrong. But it should, it's just clear. It's clear and obvious this should be a no contest. Like, really. It was an unfortunate mistake. An unfortunate mistake changed the whole trajectory of the fight, led to one guy winning. If that unfortunate mistake, what didn't happen, they changed the fight, it would have been a different outcome. So you have to give a no contest at that stage. But before that, though, we must say, what a great fight. I hope they do make it a no contest, and I hope we have a rematch, because I would love to see that fight again. It was absolutely fantastic. But
yeah, it was. I actually thought that Mark lost the first round. It was a close round. I saw one of the judges actually gave it to him, but I thought he lost it. But I thought in the second round he'd kind of taken over the momentum, the swing of the fight. Like Alvarez looked like he was tiring a bit, and Jacasey looked like he kind of, the game plan was working, and that he was taking over the fight. So it's a really hard one to take for Mark. Sometimes we don't mention this, but when a guy loses, he gets half his pay. You know what I mean? And when you lose like that, when a replay should have been called, obviously a no contest isn't ideal either. You're not getting paid, but at least. Yeah, it wouldn't have made any difference in this. It wouldn't be on your record as well. And, it's a fight that kind of, as I said, had kind of at least Mark in his head, at least, and in my opinion too, was kind of, in control of that fight as much as you can be when you're a round down in the middle of a second round. So, that's it's going to be a hard one to take. I'd say if I was Mark, I would actually dispute it and try to get it overturned, but the chances of it actually, the historical data would lead us to believe that the chances are slim to none.
Yeah, you think it should be a no-brainer, but as you say,
the commission, who is the commission? The UFC
whatever they call
hired in some people.
They had the Mark Goddard and all them boys had the English mixed martial arts thing on their shorts tonight. So is that not the commission? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if they have an actual. I'm not sure if they have an actual kind of commission hearing setting that, if you were fighting in a US state, you would have to, appeal against. So maybe they can throw something together. But yeah, I don't know. It's probably one of those situations where you just kind of you got to just take it, even though it's going to be a bitter pill to swallow.
Indeed. Johnny Parsons, Danny Roberts. Danny Roberts, a tough man here. His legs just gave out in him, and his arms were still going, but it wasn't enough. Thought it was a very good stoppage by Jason Herzog. It was one of those fights you're watching, thinking, where's the towel here? Can we protect this man? In fairness, and he was fighting away and everything, but come on, it was a prolonged beating here when he couldn't fight back. There was no intelligent defense there when he was falling around the place taking shots. Not a big fan of that anyway. I went on the live stream here, Graeme, after that, and I missed the next couple of fights. This Davy Grant Marcos fight, split decision, was very close, was it?
Arsene Wenger over here misses all the big incidents when people want. Oh my god!
I did. I was on.
Yeah, come on. To be honest, this is pretty poor. I don't know maybe it looked different from cage side or something, because the commentators seem to think that everything Marcos does was brilliant and no selling Grant, and the judges seem to agree in the end. But yeah, I thought pretty clearly Grant won the first and the third, and even the second, that could have went either way. I actually probably 30-27 or 29-28 at worst for Grant. Yeah, this is it's a pity you haven't seen it, but
I'll have to go back and watch it for the Q&A. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, this one was very surprising. I was pretty sure that Grant was going to have his hand raised at the end, and I saw the reaction on social media and Grant's reaction, and this was. Usually, I kind of think it's a bit overboard, but I think in this case, like, I wasn't watching it as a judge, but I think. I know Grant in the first round took a bit of damage on the face, a bit of blood and things like that. Obviously, cosmetic damage kind of maybe plays in a little bit more than it should when it's more of just a cut rather than a big hard shot that caused it, or a big elbow that caused it, or something like that. So maybe that played into the first round going against Grant. But that's the third round. I don't really know how that wouldn't be scored for Grant, and the second was probably the closest to the round. So maybe if that went to Marcos, that's okay. But I'm really surprised, and I think Grant won this fight, and I think it was bad judging.
It came down to that first round. I'm looking here; all three judges were agreed on the second and the third. All gave the second to Marcos, all gave the third to Grant. Anders Olsen gave the first to Grant, and Clemens Werner and Cesar Vosej, whose name I pronounced brilliantly, gave the first to Marcos. So I just need to watch the first round there, basically. So I'll go back and I'll watch that. And
well, if you score the first round for Marcos, then maybe you need to watch the second round, because Grant might have won that one too.
Fair enough. I'll have a look at it. The rest of the card, the Loughran Murphy and Josh Kulabo fight, I thought that was going to be a great fight. It wasn't a bad fight, but Murphy more so. Like, Murphy is so talented. It just feels like he needs that big win. He needs to kind of click it. I said this about Joe McColgan a while back. When he was coming through, it was like, he's doing so well. It's something just needs to click for him. He'll get that big finish. And it happened for Johnny. He won the Cage Warriors title, and then he decided to retire when it all clicked for him. But, well, maybe retire. But for Loughran Murphy, I feel like that's still coming. He's only 14 fights into his career. He won here again. He's undefeated. Very good fighter. But I really like Loughran Murphy, and I think he's a big upside. But I think bigger fights to come for him. Faraz Zian beat Jai Herbert, then again, another relatively close one then there. And then we had the three fights after that. Paul Craig got a good win there. He looked better, but do you know what, Graeme? Do you know what Paul Craig reminds me a little bit of? Derek Lewis. In that he tries to get better, but I don't know, does him getting better actually help him? I think he's better off when he's a little bit of a maverick, when he's falling to his back, when he's jumping on arm bars and things like that. And we kind of saw that a little bit in the second round here. But look, a great finish over Andre Muniz, who I think a lot of us have vastly overrated, I think, over the last while. And that's not saying anything against Craig. It was still a tough matchup for Craig here, but a good win for Paul Craig at middleweight. That middleweight division is so bad as well that Paul Craig could rise through it pretty quickly. What do you think of?
For the middleweight division, Paul Craig's probably one of the fighters I look forward to the most.
Definitely,
because he's never in a boring fight. He can be winning the fight and lose. He can be getting completely dominated and finish. They could do a lot worse than put him in a big fight on a Scottish card, even an English card, but a Scottish card will be fantastic for somebody like Paul Craig. I don't really see it happening, but I think he's not quite getting the respect he deserves in terms of card position. Usually the bigger guys would be kind of higher up the card, and maybe being Scottish and not English is playing a little bit against him there, but he seems to be liked by the fans. He seemed to get a good pop from what we could hear him, on the TV, and I've seen him fight live before. He has a good support behind him. He seems like a really nice guy. He's a finisher, or a guy who's in fights that are never boring. They're he's pulling guard, as you said. He's going for crazy submissions. He's always trying to get the finish. He's always trying to win the fight, and he's for the middleweight division. He's creeping his way up there, kind of behind the scenes, kind of quietly and without much this
is his first middleweight fight. He just came down. He didn't look great on the scale, but I think it might be.
I think he's kind of snuck in there where win or two, and he could be in a big fight. But with Paul Craig, getting that win or two. he might take a lot of damage doing it as he steps up, and maybe
massive.
Maybe the upper echelons of the division would be too much for him.
Yeah, I'd say they probably will, but like the upper echelons of that division aren't too upper, so we'll see how he goes. Just reached out to someone there asking about the whole possible no contest thing, and so apparently it was reviewed live by everyone, the referees and the officials there, and they decided to give you the decision that you got in that fight. And I'm told if you want to appeal it, the UFC act as the de facto commission when they're overseas in a place that doesn't have an official commission. Obviously the MMA isn't it yet, so you'd have to go through Mark Ratner and all of that and appeal there. So that's the answer to that question. Right, last couple of fights. This Nathaniel Wood Andre Fili fight, like I feel like the last two Nathaniel Wood fights I said he won, he looked good, but by God he's going to get caught at 145. He's just too small. Like he's such a better fighter than Andre Fili all around, but just because the extra bit of power, like Andre Fili's not even that powerful a fighter, but he's getting caught by it, and it's going to be an issue. I hope it's not. He keeps saying, this is my speed will see me through and I'm banking on my quality and all. Well, that's all well and good, but like it's going to bring lads who have lesser quality closer to you because they have the size and the power on you. And like I don't want to.
If the weight cut to 135 is taking so much out of you,
it's a tough one. It's a tough one. You have a catch-22 situation.
The health thing as well. He's only 29, but he's not getting any younger. And as you get older, it does seem to get harder to cut the weight. And if it's like such a kind of mental and physical drain on you, maybe it is better. Obviously you're going to run into some guys who are bigger than you, but you're just going to adapt your game to kind of figure out how to get through that, I suppose, and maybe make yourself a little bit less hittable than maybe he currently is. But it's a tough one, when you're kind of stuck in between two divisions. A 10-pound gap at that weight is a pretty large gap.
Massive.
Like, and guys can be cutting down from a lot higher than you are, so it definitely is a disadvantage. But in the particular fight, but for career longevity and stuff like that, and it's a difficult one. It really is a difficult one.
It's one of those situations, right, where I go against my own nature, because my nature is to say, good for you, don't cut that fucking weight. Nobody should be cutting that much weight. That if you feel like it kills me to get down to that weight, absolutely don't fucking do it. But the problem is, do you know who's killing themselves to get down to weight? Andre Fili. And he's killing himself to get down to
absolutely everybody else in the whole UFC.
Exactly. Everyone you meet. But like, you're not killing yourself to get down to 145, but you could kill yourself to get down to 135. But Andre Fili's killing himself to get down to 145 when he could be fighting a 155. So it's like, sometimes it's a 155er fighting against a 135er, if that makes a bit of sense there. Like, and that's a big problem. Now, I wish everyone would do what Nathaniel Wood did, but you can't be a sweet summer child leader and go, sure, look, I'm going to do this and it's going to benefit me, like everyone else can go fuck themselves. Like, it's simply not going to work. I wish it did, and I wish this was the case, but I just don't think it is. Now, I feel bad because it's 2 fights in a row where I'm like almost taken away from these wins. They were great wins, but like you said as well, Graeme, right? If the cut is like hurting your career and hurting your longevity, do you know what's worse for your fucking longevity is getting knocked down and hit fucking hard by bigger lads than you over and over and over again in fights. And for Nathaniel Wood, we all saw the Josh Reed fight, we all saw this fight, we all saw the last fight. You cannot live for free. You can't keep taking the amount of damage he takes in those fights and keep the chin you have. You can't do it. So I don't know.
But he'll say, I'm on a 3-fight win streak at this division, and yeah. But as you do get up, as you say again, as I'll say again, the upper echelon of the division, you look at the matchups and you think, yeah, there's a lot of big guys there. There's some very difficult matchups, and you wouldn't fancy his chances. If you drop down the weight, there's still some killers there as well. But I don't really know how to feel about this. In principle, it makes all the sense in the world, and for health and all that stuff, it's a great decision. But yeah, it's such a cutthroat business that, you know, it might end up being a mistake, but only time will tell. And, you know, the results so far are looking good for him. So, yeah, you know, it's hard to argue with him and saying that he feels better there, and that, you know, the results are proving him right so far. But yeah, time will tell as he steps up in terms of quality. But that's a pretty good win over Andre Fili. You know, Andre Fili's a little bit inconsistent, but on his day he can cause a problem for a lot of people in that division. And you know, it's a bit back and forth, but yeah, it was a good win for Nathaniel Wood. And yeah, I think you know, step up next for him. Who, like, looking at the division, it's hard to see who they'll go with next. You know,
himself and Lerone Murphy keep calling each other out. Do you think, what about that?
Do you think they want to do that? Like, I don't know. Like, even if you look just above Alex Caceres, you have like people like Barboza and Danny Ige, Bryce Mitchell.
What about Paul Hughes?
Yeah, well, obviously, Paul Hughes. How does Paul Hughes feel? You know, obviously, Caolan Loughran, we didn't even mention it yet.
We'll get to that in a second, yeah. Let's just finish this, right?
Paul Hughes still isn't in the UFC. Yeah, if Paul Hughes was signed to the UFC, it'd be a great fight. It'd be like, for Paul Hughes, I think, you know, but obviously while he's not signed in the UFC, it's a little bit kind of fantasy matchmaking. But yeah, the top 10, the top 13, 14, I don't really fancy Nathaniel Wood's chances against them. Maybe the Dan Ige fight might be one, but yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of tough matchups looking at the top 15.
Yeah, him versus Edson Barboza, that'd be fun. GC be getting cracked at that one, but
yeah, Barboza versus everybody is fun.
That's true. And in the last fight, Molly McCann versus Julia Stoliarenko. I don't really have much to say about this, Graeme, to be honest. Like, it's two kind of lower level flyweights. One of them got an armbar against the other one. One of them's good on the ground. One of them been great.
Yeah, the ref didn't notice the obvious tap for quite a while.
Did he not? Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. She pretty much tapped straight away as her arm got extended, and the ref just was really slow on the uptake there. Wasn't
a great weekend for refs, I thought. I thought there was a lot of kind of weird calls and a lot of kind of, you know, we had the no contest. Even let's talk about cage warriors for a minute. Even like in the main event there, like, I think Mark Goddard is one of the top 2 referees in the world, but I really didn't like the way he reffed the finish in that James Webb fight, and all the night in cage warriors. Like, Goddard, he used to be like, we always joke and call him the school principal, like, you know, he'd be giving out the lads and stuff, but I thought he kind of left that behind him and become like so much of a better ref because of that. But there was so much of it on cage warriors. I mean, like, just no need for it. And in the James Webb Stanton fight, where Stanton knocked Webb down, and he kept warning him so much that Webb had moved out of positions that he just got to try to protect himself. So, like, Webb got knocked down with a big shot and a big uppercut, and no problem, like, he's hurt there. This fight's almost finished. If Stanton lands more shots, no problem, get the finish. But he goes down to his back, and then Webb, after a couple of seconds, turns to his knees to protect himself. And as he does that, Goddard warns him. Like, why are you warning him? He just moved to protect himself, right? So Goddard warns him. He moves again to another position where he actually tries to stand up, but then Stanton throws a few shots. He warns him again, then he grabs the wrist. He warns him again, then he lets go of the wrist and puts up his hand to block a few shots. Warned again, gets put to his back.
It's like, what do you want me to do here? Like, I'm trying to improve my position. Exactly. I'm trying to defend myself. I'm doing everything you want. Obviously, I've been stunned with a shot here. I've been dropped, but I'm defending myself. I'm trying to improve my position, and then the ref steps in and stops it. So it was really bad. Like, you know, it was terrible. Maybe fair enough if, you know, if Staunton had been putting the beating on Webb that Webb had been putting on Staunton up to that point, and that had happened, you say, okay, I've seen enough, just call it off. But it was literally the other way around, and he got caught with a shot and was trying to defend himself while stunned, obviously, like, but not out at any moment, not limp. Always moving, always proving position, always, like, you know, engaging with his opponent, trying to hold the wrist or trying to block the shots or trying to respond to the ref's claims, like the ref's calls, as you were saying. Yeah, that was really bad. Obviously, James Webb should have finished that fight earlier. He had Staunton hurt a few times, but Stanton. Sorry, that's going to be that's another really difficult one to take for Webb. That's just really frustrating. He had his opponent basically beaten. He made a mistake, got caught, and then did everything you should do to recover, but wasn't given that chance. And that's just very unfortunate.
And it was like the Rhys McKee fight against Burlington as well. Now, funny enough, the last time I interviewed Rhys, I asked him about that. And he said exactly, like, he was in a position, the referee warns him, and then he moves to a worse position just because you've been warned, and you actually take more damage. And it nearly cost Rhys
the fight. It could have cost him a UFC contract.
100%.
It would have if he had have lost, which he nearly did. Well, not nearly did, but his percentage chances of losing went up because of the referee's instructions.
Just I feel like sometimes, like if the fight is almost going to be finished, fair enough. Just go, you have to do more here or whatever. Like, no problem. But like, the damage had been done to Webb by the time he was being given the warning. Like, he was already moving. Like,
the slot had slowed down as well. The shots he was eating had slowed down.
Yeah,
like the impact had kind of gone out of them. It was more kind of flurrying because the ref was kind of so close to the fight and so talkative that, obviously Mick knows that if I just keep kind of throwing here, there's a good chance the ref pulls me off, and he did. But he did everything right in the situation. But yeah, the ref it was bad.
Yeah, and like it's a 5-round championship fight. I don't like saying anything bad about Mark Otter because I think he's very, very good. But like, it's one of those ones I think him as a good referee will go back and go. And if you really look at it, like, and you really, true with yourself, you'll go, I would have given him a bit more of an opportunity there, and maybe take away the first 2 warnings, see what he does. Like, let's say Webb gets his knees there's no warning comes, and then he hits him with like 2 or 3 shots underneath. You stop it there, you'd actually cause less damage. You'd have to warn him less. Like, might be no need for any warning at all. But we didn't get this. I felt like the end was just unnatural. Like the referee changed the ending of the fight, which should never happen, really. But look, that's the way it was. But look, up until that, Webb was doing very well, Stanton did unbelievably to come back and land that big shot. And maybe they make the trilogy now because they're 1-1. I don't know. I don't know if people will be as up in arms maybe as we are about the stoppage, but I think they probably should, and I think that should probably lead to a rematch. Like Webb and Chris Fields, they're not the type of lads to crib and cry about a stoppage like that. Maybe it'll work against them, But it was. I don't know. It's one of those ones, right? It's not the worst stoppage in the world when you just look at the stoppage itself, the very end of it. But when you like really kind of delve into it and look at all the integers to it, I just think it wasn't great. Anyway. Congrats to Mick Stanton. Look, he got that title. 12-7 in his career now, and he's cage warriors title after defending it. Brilliant, fair play to him. Then we had a lot of featherweight fights, and they kind of all went to plan. Vucinic won, Charrier won, Luke Riley won, Harry Hardock won. So, as we said with Paul Hughes, we'll talk about more maybe in a minute or two. If he's going to defend his belt, it'll be against one of those 4. The one I would probably pick out, honestly, is probably Harry Hardwick, because he's fought Charrier and Vucinic before. I think Luke Riley probably needs 1 or 2 more fights. Let's say Paul Hughes goes to the UFC. I think, and let's say Charrier doesn't, which he could, with Paris coming up. I think they probably do Vucinic versus Charrier again for the title, and we see where it goes. Then maybe do Hardwick versus Riley. That'd be a massive fight as well. Co-main event. Winner fights the winner. I think that'd be pretty good. So fair play to those lads. Matos Ramirez, what a run again. He'll have to be fighting for the title now, 170 next. We obviously talked about Rhys McKee getting signed to the UFC last week. So that title will be up for grabs. James Sheehan around there as well. Maybe he'll be able to get in there, but great win for him. Will Curry again coming back at 185. Massive win for O'Meal Brown. He'll be thereabouts as well. Wesley Maya got a win. Agnes Hewitt got a win. Liam Gittins, who's always there around. Tom Mearns, Jordan Tanasa and Tom Creasy. But our own Takamandu, Graeme, I mentioned him earlier on. Big win for him, get the 3-2. I know I was kind of cribbing about, the opponent, but this was on short notice against a one-on-one guy, so it's not exactly, unfair matchmaker or anything, but like the way the fight played out, Taka was just leaps and bounds ahead of Grant Ogborn here, wasn't he? And I thought he was going to get the finish in the first round. I thought it probably should have been a 10-8, but Taka looked good here. The win will bring him on. I'm not sure, the opponent and the test will bring him on, but he needed to get a win here, Graeme.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Ogborn is, maybe as bad as you're making out. I think maybe 30 seconds into the fight, he kind of got his face smashed with a punch, and from then on, it was downhill from there. Taka's obviously just moved to 3-2 with that win, so it's an appropriate matchup to be going in. Like, early in your career, coming off a loss, first round submission loss in a kind of strange fight where, there was a submission that wasn't, and the fight had to be restarted. It was just it was a bit of an odd fight. So I don't really, like, on short notice, as you said, I don't really see any problem with the opponent. The guy's only 2-0, but he's undefeated, and he's kind of like, I see nothing wrong with the matchmaking anyway. Obviously, the fight played out dominant for Taka. It was a really good standing performance, very, very fluid, lots of impactful strikes, and as I said, I think the turning point of the fight was about 30 seconds in. You saw the pictures afterwards of his eye and his face, and some maybe orbital bone damage there. So Taka's shown that he has power and that he's really good on the feet. Obviously he wasn't asked too many questions in terms of the defensive grappling or wrestling and stuff like that in this fight, but it'd be interesting to see how quickly he can get back in there. He didn't take any damage that I could see in that fight, so a quick turnaround could be on the cards here, and as well, we'll probably see him in Dublin as well on the RDS card. Yeah,
and I think a quick turnaround would be good for Taka. Like, I think the short notice did him no harm here at all, so get a good few fights in and let's get going again. Cage Warriors actually have a card next week. Now, I don't think he'll be on that, but the flyweight title is on the line here. Michele Martignoni, who was 135-pound champion, relinquished his belt, obviously, the Caolan Loughran one. We'll speak about him in a second. He's coming down to fight Shaj Hack. That should be a fun fight. There are some good fights on this as well. Sylvester Miller, who fought for the title not so long ago, he 135. He's on it. One of my top prospects in Cage Warriors, James Power. This guy is absolutely legit. Brad was telling me his opponent, Michael Pajani, and I'll have a whole preview out with Brad on this on Sherdog during or maybe SevereMMA, I'm not sure, during the week. That's a very good fight. Leon Hill from Ireland, Team KF again, is against Demetrio Guidolin, who beat Adam Cullen, sparked him in the last fight. So that's a massive fight at 155 pounds as well. And there's a lot of talk about Leon Hill after going up leaps and bounds as well. And Mason Jones also on this card, coming back from the UFC. He's at 155 pounds now. So very interesting times ahead for Cage Warriors. Right, Caolan Loughran, Graeme. Signed to the UFC after Rhys McKee had signed. Obviously, Shauna fought this weekend. We have Conor McGregor there. We have Ian Gary there now. 5 fighters. Very recently, I remember asking a question to when I interviewed.
Sure, Gunnar Nelson's still Irish as well.
He's still Irish, but I remember asking the question to John Kavanagh not too long ago, that saying that Conor McGregor was the only Irish trained fighter in the UFC at one stage, but that has very quickly changed. Although Ian Gary's not Irish trained.
Irish trained.
Caolan Loughran's not
Johnny
Irish
Walker.
Trained. No, Irish born, Irish trained. Yeah, so, well, there's how many is there? Shauna Bannon is, Conor McGregor is, and Rhys McKee is. So there's 3 now. 2 of them are not Irish trained, but they're all, we're not giving away fighters now. We're taking more fighters. But Caolan, Graeme, like I spoke to Caolan after his last win, or was it after the last win? It was after the last win, I think. Yeah, and he was like saying, UFC to fuck, to quote him exactly. And, I had the same reservations maybe as I had with Sean. I was like, is it a little bit too early and all of that? And maybe it will be. But his opponent is a debuting UFC fighter as well. And obviously we'll talk and we'll have a look about him as the fight gets closer. But Caolan's improvements over the last couple of fights have been astounding. And I think we've spoken about it. The UFC loves finishers. They love undefeated fighters. Obviously, they love Cage Warriors fighters. We all know about that. And it was the perfect the perfect storm for Caolan Loughran, really. And I think like that Luke Shanks win and the win over in Italy the last time when he just destroyed his opponent, you know, he's ready. I think he is ready. The only thing again that will get him is inexperience, like kind of like Shauna octagon jitters, that sort of thing. But like the quality that he has, he'll improve and it'll improve. But he's good enough to beat guys in the UFC right now, and I'm excited, Graeme. How excited are you for this one?
Yeah, I'm really excited. You know, obviously we were kind of saying at the start when he kind of first turned pro, we were saying, oh, maybe, you know, the criticism of fighting cans and all that stuff is legitimate, and you need to step up. And we've seen him step up in style. You know, he's ran through these opponents, like sliced through them, looked phenomenal. Looked like he's, you know, coming on leaps and bounds in between fights. We talk about guys improving in between fights, especially early in their career, but Caolan Loughran he looks so comfortable. He looks like experienced. He looks like a veteran. He looks like he's been in 20, 30 fights. You know, he obviously, as you just said, and as we talked about in the lead up to Shauna's debut, and we talked about today, there definitely is a different, you know, a different thing. He hasn't had that a huge pressure and media attention and, you know, UFC prestige and just all the stuff that goes with it. It definitely will, you know, it will be something to look into and something to think about, and it could play a factor. It might not. We see some guys, it doesn't really matter. But even with Ian Gary, we kind of saw it a little bit. Even in victory, we saw some maybe under par performances for how good these guys are in their early days. So that is something to play in. But as you said, his opponent is in the same boat as it stands. You know, opponents can change and all that. It's in September. There's still a bit of time to go. But just the way he went through Shanks, especially, and Dylan Hazan, yeah, I think he's ready. You know, I think there's a lot of matchups that I like for him in the bantamweight division in the UFC, and I hope you know, it looks like they're going to give him a slow build. He's still a new pro, like, you know, he's still, you know, he's only kind of stepped up in quality of opponent like 1 year ago, like what, June 22, like a year and a month ago. So it is very early days, but as long as they give him the right matchups, I think, you know, it's definitely it's not too soon.
Yeah, like, and to be fair now, I think the Shauna matchup wasn't a bad or unfair matchup. I think the Reese one this time around anyway isn't that either. So I think to be fair, they're getting better at that. But I think like they probably have more opportunity to get better at that because this is happening, I suppose, more these days. But yeah, I'm really excited about Caolan. Like, I love his style. I love a different sort of style, and the way he fights kind of stands in that middle, holds his ground, and just he's an awkward fighter, but so technical in the way he fights. It's brilliant. And he's added in those takedowns as well. They're probably always there, but he's just added them in, and he's so strong. He's like an absolute bull, and he hits hard, and he's a great athlete. And, you know, you come, and people mightn't realize it as well, right?
Supreme confidence as well.
Very confident. Yeah. But like, he comes from a Gaelic football background in Tyrone. Like, if you want to build fucking tough, that's where you come from. Like, that is where you come from. And he's had a great bedding as an athlete coming up, going through there. Like, he told me in the interview I did with him, you know, he was going to be on county teams and in his, you know, his club team playing on big county matches and stuff until he tore his ACL like 3 times in the space of 18 months or something like that. And, you know, that's how tough Gaelic football is in Tyrone. But, yeah, he's a really, really, really hot prospect, a top prospect, and I can't wait to see. You know, and obviously we're a little bit biased being Irish and get a little bit carried away, but sure, why not? Like, you know, it's great to see this fucking Irish brigade coming through, and it's absolutely fantastic, and there's more coming. You know, Kiefer Crosby and Danny McCormack, and hopefully a load more on the way as well. It'd be absolutely fantastic to see each and every one of them. And it was funny, Graeme, like, we were only talking about it, like, it feels like only a few months ago. It's probably a few years ago. I remember it was like, there was a one stage, it was just the two of us and no one else kind of in Irish MMA there for a while, and I was like, Jesus. And, you know, the old triangle came, and them boys have done an absolute great job as well. And it really did feel like Irish MMA MMA was in the wilderness there for a while, and you know, people that had been covering it before went away, and they were either doing other things or talking about English MMA or, you know, whatever it might have been, and like Irish MMA was still there, and it was still strong, and it was still coming. And like look at the likes of Ian Gary saying, you know, he saw Conor fighting, or look at, you know, the likes of Caolan, or the likes of James Gallagher up the north, and all them lads, you know, fucking fighting their way to get to the top. It's been absolutely great to see, and you know, SevereMMA.
I think there definitely was like a dip, like, you know, there was you know, the Joe Carvalho thing, and leading into regulation and being more expensive to put on shows, and then like lockdown and things, and the massive lack of shows in the south of Ireland definitely stunted. We talked about it at the time. It was stunting these guys. You know, people like Lee Hammond, who are on Tough now, would probably have a lot more experience, like than they do now. Like, maybe, you know, they would have had that experience 3 or 4 years before, and maybe would have kind of risen through the promotions quicker. But you know, I think all in its own time, and it seems to have come together really nicely. It seems to be like, you know, a pretty good second wave coming in here. Obviously, we mentioned Caolan, we mentioned Paul earlier on. You know, it's mind-boggling how he's on the UFC.
It has to be next.
I see some people replying, "Oh, it's because maybe the UFC think he's boring or too many decisions." It's just like absolute nonsense. Like, he's not boring in any way. He's supremely talented. He's at least in the debate to be the most talented of the upcoming fighters. You know, if you don't think he is, he's, you know, fair enough, but he's definitely in the debate, in my opinion. You know, the quality of opponents that he's beaten, like, you know, we just saw the Charrier and Vucenic there, like, you know, slice through their opponents in style. Yeah, it's like, I think I said this last week and the week before and the week before that, but it must be hard for him at home. He's obviously happy for these guys that he's kind of come up with or whatever, but it must be frustrating, and kind of just more than frustrating. It must be just confusing why he hasn't been given this chance. He put
out a tweet as well about saying, thanks for all the messages and all, but I'm sure all the messages are great, like, but that must be so fucking disheartening, because like, even I tweeted last week, you know, when there wasn't talk about this or whatever, and I was watching a featherweight fight, and I was like, basically, how can these two lads be in the UFC and Paul Hughes isn't? And like, he kind of retweeted it with like a confused face or whatever, and it's like, he must be looking at that himself and thinking like, how the fuck? And it's different even for Caolan, right? Because Caolan has really only had 2 fights at the very top level in the last, what did you say there, the last fucking 9 months or whatever it was. Like, Paul Hughes has been around for a good while now. Like, we were talking about Paul Hughes fighting Mads Burnell about 3 years ago. Like, that's how long Paul Hughes has been around fighting at that sort of level. And
even before that, he came through, like, you know, constant broken hands, doctors telling him that he needs to retire because of his hands, things like that. You know, he's come through a lot of adversity to be there. He's, you know, put on amazing performances. He's shown that he can do it in the striking realm, the wrestling, the grappling. He can finish. He can go 5 rounds. He can hang with the best in Europe and beat them. Like, definitely a really frustrating time it must be for Paul. And, you know, hopefully the call is around the corner, but the longer it drags on, and the more people that kind of get signed, not just Irish, other, like, you know, across the world getting signed, Paul not getting signed, it's a strange one. You know, I think if they get him in there, he can cause a bit of a stir, like, and get some noise behind him and things like that. It's not as if he's a boring personality. You know, he's exciting. He can talk. He can finish. He can fight all around. He's smooth. He's exciting. He's a top class martial artist. Like, it's really they really fumbled the bag here at the UFC.
Hashtag Paul Hughes for the UFC. That's what we need to go. Just one thing, Graeme, as well, when we're talking about this. SevereMMA.com/awards. Let me just go through them, right? Emerging Prospect of the Year 2022. The winner for us, Lee Hammond, who's in tough at the moment. Hopefully he'll be signed to the UFC, who knows. 2021, Palahan, doing great things over in Combaches, won a good few fights over there. 2020 and 2019, Ian Gary, enough said. 2018, Kiefer Crosby on the verge of getting to the UFC. 2017, Will Fleury, we know what happened to Will over the last while, but in the big tournament in PFL. Rhys McKee just signed to the UFC 2016. 2015, Peter Queally, title challenger in Bellator. 2014, Joseph Duffy, who fought Dustin Poirier at very high level in the UFC. That's some record. Not one miss there in the last 7 years, Graeme. Or more, 9 years. That's pretty good. And then the amateurs of the year, 2021, Shauna Bannon just in the UFC. 2020, Derek Kelly in Bellator. 2019, Takamandu just got a great win there last night. Lee Hammond, 2018 in Tough. Franz Malambo coming up in PFL, he's the 2015, and there's a few other guys. A.O. Daly, very unfortunate with injury and stuff. Dave Fogarty went out 1 year. He's doing other things now, taking photos and stuff, and there's a few more there as well. But if you're watching the likes of Keith Keogh and others coming along, they should probably be people you should be keeping an eye on as well. But I think we both take great pride in them awards, Graeme, and by reading off them lists there, I don't think anybody can doubt them. Them awards are speak for themselves. So I'm very proud of them, and fair play to all the fighters coming through. Right, a few more things. Big card next week. We'll obviously have the big preview for this, so we won't get in too much into it. UFC 291 coming up next Saturday. There's a Bellator versus Risen card as well. There's some good fights on this. AJ McKee versus Patricky Pitbull, Danny Sabatello, Magomedov, and a few more as well. But 291, Poirier versus Gaethje, brilliant fight. Blachowicz versus Pereira, Ferguson versus Green, Wonderboy's on the card, Derek Lewis is on the card, and a few more. What are you looking forward to the most, Graeme? What catches your eye here on this one?
I always love a Wonderboy fight. I actually always love a Gaethje and a Poirier fight. I know it's a rematch, but it's one that both guys can finish each other. Both guys can knock each other out. Both guys are going to go looking for the finish. So it's probably going to be a really exciting fight as long as it lasts. I lean Poirier, but I wouldn't be all that surprised if Gaethje can land something and turn the fight. But Wonderboy, high
above the mucky, castles.
You're Wonderboy's biggest fan. It's a pretty exciting fight, in terms of a style clash. I don't know if Pereira is going to be able to, Wonderboy do much of his fancy shit successfully against Wonderboy. I'd say, just the fact that Wonderboy is kind of getting on in age so much, for a guy who uses so much speed and tiny little distances of getting out of range and things like that. If you do have, we've seen it in the Pettis fight. If he gets caught, he can be finished. But yeah, I think as long as Wonderboy kind of plays it smart here, he should be able to pick apart Pereira. But I'm always excited when Wonderboy fights. He's a very exciting guy, a bit of a different style, and I really enjoy Wonderboy. I always have. Derek Lewis, I always enjoy as well. Just the madness of the whole thing. It's kind of died down a little bit because of his kind of shift to trying to be a proper martial artist instead of being just being Derek Lewis that we all know and love. Yeah. So hopefully we see some of the old beloved Derek Lewis and his craziness. Jake Matthews is another guy who I kind of had hopes for when he first came through. He's the kind of guy who maybe in a way can't get out of his own way. He's kind of loses fights that he's winning or that he should win. It's kind of slipping away from him. It's a nice matchup here for him, but I'm kind of disappointed with how it's worked out for Jake Matthews. For a pay-per-view card, it's not really the most exciting.
It's pretty exciting. Maybe there isn't as much name value apart from the main event, but Jesus.
Once you get to the main card, it's pretty exciting. But for the prelims, it's not very exciting. Besides,
I'll take it.
Obviously, the Derek Lewis prelim main event will hopefully be exciting. But as you move up the card, obviously Tony Ferguson and Bobby Green should be fun too. Quite crazy individuals. Probably a bit of trash talking going back and forth during the fight for as long as it lasts here. We talked about Tony Ferguson, and is maybe how overrated he is and how hittable he is. And Bobby Green over the years has been kind of hit and miss, but he's looked a bit more kind of polished, and I think he probably have too much for Tony here. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually finishes Tony, even though he's coming off a no contest clash of heads and Drew Dober lost, KO lost himself. Tony Ferguson's taking a lot of damage. The game's kind of passed him by a little bit. I don't know if he hasn't improved in a long time. He's just been very hittable, and
I think Bobby will.
Yeah, I just think this could be a bad night for Tony.
Yeah, I think Blachowicz will win that. I think his takedowns will be enough against Pereira. I think big test for Pereira. It's the first
I think he has to play this really smart and immediately initiate some kind of grappling. No messing around. No, let me wait for the opportunity here. Just make it happen as soon as physically possible. Like, get across that ring and get him out of his striking game, and at least make him think constantly about not wanting to be on his back. I think if Jan can get it to the black, it'll be get Pereira to his back. I think it'll be a pretty easy night for him. But I'm sure Alex is ready for that. I'm sure he has counter shots to this that he's worked on to try and keep himself on their feet and deter his opponents from going for future takedowns. But yeah, I think it's basically just up to if Jan doesn't go for or can't get an early takedown, I think he's in big trouble. But if he can, I think it's going to be an easy night. I
don't necessarily agree with that. I think he did it against Izzy. Like, Izzy doesn't have the power of Pereira, obviously. Well, he knocked him out last time. But I think Jan is an underrated kickboxer, and Sean Denny will probably be cheering at home as he listens to that. But
I think the power difference between Pereira and...
Yeah, but I'm not saying get into a kickboxing match with him, but like, do what he did against Izzy. Don't bite on the feints. Don't get hit by the big shots, and set him up. Let him throw. Be defensively good, and then go for the takedown. Like, if you're just going for takedowns early, Pereira is going to be able to read it a bit more. So I don't know. I think
push him up against the cage at the very least early, maybe, yeah.
And Poirier Gaethje. Do you know what? I think I'm going to go back. I might do a rewatch this week and go back and watch that fight, and then we can we'll have a big preview on that over on our YouTube as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like Gaethje's new kind of newer technical game might actually benefit Poirier a little bit more. And I saw Gaethje talking this week as well about, if he wins, he's probably not going to be able to turn around. And the fight's not happening anyway. Charles Oliveira is fighting Makhachev. But I don't know, it's all a very... Gaethje does say weird stuff all the time anyway, so maybe I shouldn't be reading into it. But I don't know, just the way he's talking a bit negative, and maybe I fancy Poirier coming to this one. But as I said, we'll have a big preview. Harry, Ian, I'll probably jump on with him as well, and we'll have a big chat about that one, so it will be fun. Graeme, two things before we go. Do you know who else was fighting this weekend? Jarrah Harris, great win. Great win. Here we go. Great win over in Anthony Pettis' promotion. He's a very good prospect. And Andreas Binder as well, fighting over in LFL, I think it's called, isn't it? Got a massive knockout, and he's another prospect. If people don't know him, he
won the belt, didn't he? Yeah?
He did, yeah. Or did he defend it? He's the champion anyway. But he beat Ian Gary as an amateur as well. So, he's the modern day Joseph Duffy, I suppose you would call him. But a very good fighter and a very good prospect as well. He's calling to get on the Bellator fight, Dublin card. And do you know what? I think that'd be a great call. Bellator have been looking for lads from, I suppose, outside of SPG Ireland to fight. And from different parts of Ireland. I think he's from Galway as well, didn't he? So that'd be great. Someone from the west of Ireland being on as well. And he absolutely deserves that. So shout out to Andreas as well. So listen to the Old Triangle if you haven't heard it. The lads talk about all things Irish MMA. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube as well, please do. And follow me on Twitter at SeanGNBA. Follow Graeme at SevereMMA. And please subscribe to this podcast feed wherever you're listening to it. And we love you all. Thanks very much, Graeme. See us out on a quote for the week. Before you go, actually, who do you think will win the All-Ireland? Limerick or Kilkenny?
Jeez, I know nothing about
come on, make a call.
GA, but as they are the Man City of hurling, as you told me last week, I think Limerick will win. Brilliant. That's all. Give us your quote for the week. All right. My biggest mistake was loving you too much and letting you know. Now you've got me where you want me. You won't let me go. No. That's fucking me with Limerick hurling. We'll see you all next week, lads. Good luck.